So let's maybe kick things off, and then people can keep dialing in, and even though nobody might sort of dial in, we'll send them the recording later on. So, but thank you so much to everyone for joining this Ninja Brainstorm in collaboration with MikeLegal. Today, my name is Rohan Billimora. I'm the founder of this platform called Law Ninjas for a community. It's a community of lawyers and law students around the world. And today we've got a panel of 5 esteemed speakers who are going to be talking about how GCs and in-house lawyers can use legal tech. And I mean, let me just briefly sort of introduce them, but I think I'll defer to them to give a sort of a better introduction of what their role is, and also kind of what they're seeing in the world of legal tech in their respective countries and companies. But I mean, the speakers we've got today are Wendy from Jonas Software in Australia. We've got Emilie Franklin from Trapeze and MODAXO. We've got Anshul and Tushar from MikeLegal, which is legal tech and AI tool and a company based out of India. We've also got Rosen, who's calling us from Singapore, and he's CEO and General Counsel at Keenan Holdings. And then we've got Arjun David Alexandra, who's the head of legal at Open Financial Technologies. So it's great to firstly have all of you with us, including our 5 speakers. But maybe just as a starting point, Rob, given that I know, Rob and I, we used to work at Linklaters together, so we go way back. So Rob, maybe if you can just tell us a little bit about your role at Keenan and also how you're sort of seeing legal tech around you.
Sure. Thank you. And thank you, Rohan. It's good to be here. I'm always excited for these sessions because I get to learn something. I think to understand our view of the world, it's helpful to understand what our business is, because unlike a lot of other companies, we're not an operating company. We are an investment holding company based in Singapore. We're listed on the New York Stock Exchange and the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. We hold and manage investments globally, about $3.5 billion. Including Israeli power generation, global shipping, Chinese automotive manufacturing, and other very short and long-term investments. We have a small team here in Singapore with our directors located in the US, the UK, Israel, and Singapore. So when we work day to day, although the operational people are here, the strategic people are global. So we've really relied from day one, actually, when we initially spun off in 2015, on abilities to, technologies that would allow us to communicate and collaborate basically since 2015. We have been refining and working on these over time. But the way I've always looked at it is imagine getting people around a table, and you're all kind of looking at the same document, and somebody kind of has a pen and is making notes. And replicating that on a global scale is really key for us. And I think that's the way we use it. So I know some companies, for example, they use it for contract generation and ensuring, that the policy and the reps and the provisions are uniform or custom or whatnot. For us, it's not that way. For us, we are managing investments and people and making decisions and strategizing on a global basis by having our team basically located anywhere. By example, COVID wasn't very disruptive from that perspective for us, since we're used to working basically anywhere, from hotels, airports. It was just shifting to home.
Awesome.
So that's in a nutshell how we view it.
Thank you, Rob. And yeah, I know we've got some, varying degrees of experience. So we've got some GCs as well as, legal tech and in-house lawyers on the call. So for anyone who's listening in, this is not meant to be like one of those traditional webinars where you just get a one-way stream of consciousness and you just have to sit back and listen. This is meant to be very sort of interactive. So if you have any questions or comments, if you want to share any stories or experiences you've had in this sort of legal tech space, please do share them either via the chat or feel free to unmute your microphone and let us know. But maybe Arjun, you're at a company called Open Financial, which I believe is India's 99th unicorn or very recent unicorn. How are you seeing legal tech in your world?
Right. Thanks, Rohan, and good to hear from you as well, Rob. So we are actually India's 100th unicorn, and I guess that's what we've been known for as well. So in terms of legal tech, Rohan, I think it's been more recently that we have, though my eyes have been on it for a really long time, it's only more recently that we've actually started adopting legal tech more, more consciously as well. Though, I mean, at a foundational level, obviously there will be the usage of MS Word and Gmail and all, but things that can increase efficiency and drive value, we've started using them more recently as well. So being a fintech company, I mean, I think it would be divergent from what Rob had stated. Their setup is more of a holding investment company kind of setup. So ours is more traditional in that sense. So we were keeping an eye out for tools that can help us with contract management, AI-based review and drafting, something that can do, borderless and paperless kind of databases that can be like a single source of truth when it comes to case laws and judicial proceedings. And then there are also other things like ESOP management and of the like, which you can now do through tech tools as well. So we took stock of what kind of tools are out there, and then try to kind of figure out where our pain points are and what tools we need to adopt at first, given the priority as well. So that's the kind of outlook that we had when we started dabbling with more enhanced legal tools more recently.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Arjun. And maybe Emilie and Wendy, I mean, you're both based in Australia. So maybe Wendy, I'll ask you first. What are you seeing? Because obviously, it's different and companies are at different stages in their legal tech journey as well, depending on, I guess, their size and where they're based. What are you seeing in, I guess, Australia or your industry?
Thanks, Ron. So it's kind of been a bit of a slow burn, I think, over here, but then suddenly it's caught on like wildfire. So I was at an engineering firm a few years ago, and we started as an in-house team with all 6 lawyers receiving every single legal request. And you can imagine that is really hard for everybody to be getting the same email. So you go away to a meeting and come back and you'd have 50 emails that you don't need to read, but just in your inbox. And we went through a process where we shifted that within the team. And it was interesting, though, it was so important to the lawyers to fix that process and to get that workflow, the matter management workflow. But it really didn't matter to the rest of the business. It was just an overhead. So a big issue I find is finding the resources to be able to pay for this kind of legal tech, to get the business to actually buy in, because they just see in-house as an overhead. And trying to explain to someone that you need to spend 25 or 50 grand and take someone off operations to actually implement these things, it can be quite difficult. And so it's a bit of a process. And then I went out and at one stage got a quote for another business improvement process. And again, to try and get the budget to be able to spend that kind of money just to improve the legal matter flow process is very difficult. So whilst a lot of people are very keen adopters of it, as an in-house lawyer, it's very hard sometimes to get the rest of the business to come along for the ride, to be able to show the efficiencies that it will bring. And that's what's slowing down the uptake of all of these systems and these processes.
Thank you. That's a really valuable insight. Emilie, are you seeing sort of a similar trend in your space as well?
Yeah, I am. And what I've noticed in particular is if the business has, I guess, had errors in a certain area, there's often more buy-in. So what I've noticed is particularly for us recently, we've had some huge large contract renewals that we've not renewed because the business doesn't have a process in place, basic reminding system, or we've had high retention and change of staff. So we've missed really key contract renewals. And I think from a business perspective, that has come as, I guess, a big wake-up call. So unlike Wendy, I'm getting a bit more buy-in, but I guess I've had that change, or the loss, the business has lost revenue as a result of not having an efficient process in place. So the buy-in is, I guess, becoming a bit more worthy or attractive to the company. But yeah, like Wendy, it is a slow burn. Like, you have to engage all the stakeholders at a early start, get buy-in, engage with them, work out what the inefficiencies are, and then try and work out what the best tool is that suits the business and the organization, because there's so many tools and different techs out there at the moment that do such a wide range of things. So it's really important to ensure that, one, it meets your business needs, but also that it interacts effectively with the rest of the business. So, other programs that your sales teams are using.
Yeah, so I guess that needs to all kind of integrate, and sort of they all need to talk to each other. And so Anshul and Tushar, I mean, you're at MikeLegal, which is a legal tech company. So you're, I guess, on the other side of this sort of discussion. But how have you seen sort of I met you guys 5 years ago when I think you had just started MikeLegal. How have you seen, firstly, legal tech develop over the last 5 years? And also, what are you seeing at the moment in terms of trends in India and outside of India?
Sure. So it's very interesting, right? So the points that Wendy and Emilie picked up, that's actually a scenario we also face, because we're on the other side. So, we actually work with the GC or the champion in the legal team to really work out how to make the business use case of it. But what's very exciting as a legal tech company is the awareness on legal tech, right? So, when we used to talk to GCs 3 years ago, as Wendy mentioned, legal teams were looked at as an overhead. There weren't really, very exhaustive budgets to really work on. And that actually became a big challenge for the onboarding and adoption. Now it's a complete radical shift, at least, when we're interacting, where legal teams do understand that efficiency is a competitive advantage, right? And what we have started to see, that in-house legal teams have started to become more strategy focused, right? More connected to the business as opposed to just core legal. And that's where the adoption of legal tech is picking up, because they understand that they don't want to spend time on mundane manual processes. They can actually spend more time on negotiation strategy. So as a legal tech company, I think it's a very interesting time to be in. We've seen a radical shift in India, right, which has still it's still very behind in terms of what legal tech can be, but we definitely believe that it's on the right foot. And like Wendy and Emilie mentioned, I think for us, what we've tried to do as legal tech vendors is to really justify the ROI, right? So if we can justify that, we can actually help you save, say, $40,000 in a year, can we justify a price in that manner? How easy are we to get adopted? So I think those things put together allow us to get onboarded with the GCs. Obviously, we're working with Arjun. Arjun can obviously give a better insight from his perspective on why he chose us, the reason for legal tech, etc. But we see now that many companies are creating small legal teams to actually get processes in-house and actually build on that rather than outsource on that. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Thanks so much, Anshul. And yeah, I mean, at some point, I think, maybe in about 10-15 minutes, I'd love to see, I think we'd all love to see maybe a quick, demo of what you guys are doing in action. Just because, we all talk about legal tech as this kind of concept, but it'd be good to see what it actually means, at least, with your solution. I know, as I think Arjun said, legal tech has lots of different elements. There's contract management, there's this, there's that. So that's really interesting. And so I guess maybe Wendy, I can sort of call on you. There's this whole, not maybe myth or fear amongst, and there used to be definitely, that legal tech is going to replace lawyers. Like all of us, we're going to be out of a job once legal tech comes into play. Do you agree with that? Are you seeing that, or do you feel like legal tech is just a way to make lawyers and everybody else's lives just a bit easier?
I think that the role of the in-house lawyer is changing. And I think that the business more and more looks to us for a risk mitigation or a risk management kind of point of view. So the scope of each lawyer's role is so broad now. It's not just contract review or governance or anything like that. And the problem is I'm on my own. So I do all operational contracts, all governance, all M&A, everything. And well, I would love to never have to review another contract. I mean, if I could find some software to just get rid of all my operational contracts, I would probably pay for it myself. But I don't think that it is possible, because every contract is so bespoke, and the commercial rationale of each business. So we have 14 different software brands that we sell, and each business has such different risk frameworks that trying to get something to totally cover that off would be very difficult. And when you're in that last stage of negotiation, it's always a bit of a captain's call about what you're prepared to put up with and what you're not. And I just don't know if maybe software will get there one day, but I don't think it will. I think there's a lot of places for software, but to give you a long answer to a pretty short question is, I think that you'll always need a lawyer to have that last bit of say, and also to strategically guide what the business should be looking at and what they shouldn't worry about. So I don't think it'll totally replace us, but I think there's certainly room for it to help a lot.
Thank you. Rob, you and I, like I said, we worked at Linklaters. So you were in private practice at Millbank as well before that, and then you moved in-house to Keenan, and then you moved into a business role, being now the CEO. You've, I guess, seen sort of different worlds and I guess legal tech develop as well over the last few years. What's your perspective? Being a lawyer and now on the business side, seeing both sides, is legal tech this thing that companies need? Is it going to replace lawyers, or is it just a tool to make lives easier?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think it's like any other industry. I don't think lawyers are immune necessarily, even though we started at theoretical, at least a higher value proposition. But the higher you get up the value chain for a lawyer, the more legal tech is going to be an assistance rather than a replacement. I mean, I recall, Rohan, maybe I'm a bit older than you, but when I started out at Millbank as a first year, what we did most nights was, if we sent out a document like a credit agreement, you'd have to print 40 or 50 of these things and put them on a conference room table and physically print cover letters. Some people be BCC'd, some are CC'd, sort it all out and make sure everything is ready to go by the FedEx deadline. Some people get black lines, some don't. And you'd have to make sure physically who's getting what. It would be 2 junior lawyers and a legal assistant. FedEx deadline at 11 o'clock. And this is what you would do. Closing, the same thing. You'd go into a room and you would have all the accordion folders and you would put it all out there. Now we have email. Now we sign things remotely. Junior lawyers, their lives, they didn't replace junior lawyers. They still have them. Their lives are no easier than they were. In fact, now it's harder. And they were forced to a certain degree up the value chain a bit more. But the roles change. And I think that's what happens. I think, with lawyers, there's always going to be some risk of replacement at some level. But for the most part, I think people will get pushed up the value chain. And I think the roles will change in ways that we can't see. As the AI gets better, for example, on contracts, people are going to have different roles in the contracts, right? They're not going to have to be there typing and repeating and doing the more basic things. But, legal tech, I don't know, if it wasn't for the advancements in legal tech, my position and my ability to actually have progressed from GC to CEO would never have happened. Because my ability to manage this business is premised solely on the fact that I can live and work in Singapore at this company and manage, effectively a global business with directors around the world and using a whole number of different tools bespoke for each of the different things I do. So the way I communicate with fellow employees is a different tool than I use for how I communicate with, say, my board of directors, which is how different than how I communicate with people on the outside. It's just, you just need different tools that work, and you need to marry it all together. I mean, I'll give you an example. We all use iPads. I'm a big iPad person. You know that, Rohan.
Yeah, you love them.
I've been a big proponent of it for a long time. We have it. There's an app. It's just readily available. I don't know if people know this, but you can take a PDF and you can mark up a PDF. That's not special. Everyone knows that. But on this app, you can share that with anybody else who has that app. And in real time, you're seeing everybody's markup in a different color. And it says who's writing it. So now we can do a FaceTime with the chairman of my audit committee, draft financial statements or documents with lawyers, and everybody can look at the same document, the same draft, and mark it up together at the same time. Again, going back to my analogy in the beginning, which was sitting around a conference room table and all being able to negotiate and talk about the same document in real time without having to, talk about a document that's in front of different people on different pages. And it just makes it so much more efficient and seamless. And the more you can do that and the easier you can make it, we have older directors, the people that are, 60s and 70s, and they're not so tech savvy. So if the tech that I give them in their role isn't incredibly straightforward and user friendly, they just don't use it. They simply don't use it. So you have a limited set of tools and opportunities with them to basically roll things out. Whereas with younger employees, people that are more tech savvy, you can use more sophisticated things. And there's a balance there. And I think we all have to learn to adapt and be flexible. And you need to really understand the tech that you use. You need to understand where the tech is going. And again, Rohan, I love the iPad, but there were meetings in Malaysia years ago that we would go for drafting sessions. And I remember bringing my iPad to these meetings when everyone else had laptops. And I left my laptop in Singapore to force myself over a 3-day meeting to only use an iPad. And people thought I was crazy. They could not understand. And after half a day, well, for the first hour or two, I thought I was crazy. But after half a day, I realized that not only did it work, but now I could mark things up and send it back to Singapore in real time during the meeting that nobody else could do that. And this is before all the technology. So you really have to force yourself as a younger lawyer or kind of a mid-level lawyer to really try to engage and understand the technologies, because otherwise it's easy to become a dinosaur very fast. It's easy to get overwhelmed. And you can't anymore just say, I don't understand tech. I like to mark things up with a piece of paper and put it on a scanner and email it. Right, those days are getting left behind, and you need to adapt.
No, thanks, Rob. And yes, this session is not sponsored by Apple or the iPad, but yeah, Rob is a big fan. And I remember, I think when the iPad first came out, that he was like, "This is amazing. You guys all need one." And I would be like, and I'm not tech savvy at all, and I'd be like, "Oh, what's this? Like, I prefer my computer."
My 2 cents on it, by the way, was that everyone looked at it the wrong way. Everyone looked at it like a laptop that didn't work like a laptop. And the reality was it was basically replacing paper. It wasn't replacing a computer. And as long as you looked at it like replacing paper that could then be shared in real time, you understood kind of what the iPad was. That's my take on it. And as a lawyer, this is why it was so helpful as a lawyer, because we lived in paper. Yeah. We still work with external partners who, senior partners at law firms that, they got their yellow pad and they still do things like that. And, I'll be sitting in a meeting with them and someone will bring up something that happened 2.5 years ago, and I'll do a quick search. And because there's OCR, because it can recognize my handwriting, I can find the note that I took in about 8 seconds, literally. And they are flipping and trying to remember. And some of them have great memories. I mean, I don't want to disparage that. I don't want to have to remember things. I'm not that good, right? So you have to embrace it, really. Or
Thank you.
You get left behind.
Thank you. Yeah, no, definitely. I think with the legal community, again, because we're such a traditional sort of industry, there is either a fear or there's a reluctance or there's like an inertia of just change generally. And so this whole legal tech revolution is definitely, I think, challenging that norm. So maybe Emilie, if you can, I don't know if you wanted to maybe answer that sort of previous question about how legal tech is kind of, either making people's lives easier or replacing them. But I kind of also wanted to hear your thoughts on, given the fact that you're a GC, and you've probably seen a few legal tech solutions and maybe even adopted a few. What are the key learnings that you've had in your journey, whether it's seeing legal tech or sort of implementing it?
Yeah, thanks, Rohan. So just quickly, on the previous question, I agree with what has been said. I think lawyers won't be replaced, but our roles will evolve as technology gets better. I think you'll always find that there needs to be a place for a lawyer because the technology will never be able to completely analyze, I guess, the data and compare it in comparison to legislation. Not all legislation and policy is black and white. So you still need, I guess, a legal opinion from that perspective. Technology is very good where it's black and white, but beyond that, I guess there's still room for improvement. But we'll see where it goes. In relation to tips, I have a couple. So my first one is when you're trying to implement legal tech, I would, as a starting point, do some form of audit. So, go through, so I oversee 8 business units across Asia Pacific, Middle East, Africa, and India. And what I have done previously is I ask all business units the same question, work out where the inefficiencies are, then report back, work out what the top priorities were, sit down with all those managers, and then pinpoint. So they've got all the priorities. I guess we've collated on all the priorities. We've worked out what exactly they need or what they want the specific technology to focus on for this time. And also it gives a good opportunity for stakeholder buy-in at a really early stage, and I find that that's critical as you progress through the process. So once I've got the buy-in, I've worked out what the technology needs to achieve, what inefficiency it needs to, I guess, fix. I then look either through the community at what tech solutions there are, and then do some trials and demos, and I run it throughout the whole business. So all relevant teams, from whether it's shared services, HR, finance, or whether it's sales. That way it gives you an idea of where some glitches may be, or integration perspective with other softwares that the finance team may use versus the sales team. Then collate feedback. Once a feedback's gathered, they may say to me, this tech solution's not great, and then we'll try again. So I think the main thing that I just wanted to share is, even if you go through that process and you find that the tech solution isn't great, don't feel obligated to go with that tech company. Like, yes, you've invested a lot of time. Yes, they've invested their time, but if it doesn't suit your business needs, it's not going to fill the inefficiencies going forward. And that's what we've found through a lot of our related companies. They've had to quickly fill in gaps, so they've just gone and got the first technology that they've heard about. But what's happened is that the process has actually become more manual, and so it hasn't filled any efficiencies. In fact, it's made their roles more time consuming and more of a burden. So they've spent 50 to 100K on this technology that hasn't achieved anything. So I think that's probably one of my biggest take homes, is don't feel obligated to buy something just because you've spent the time and that service provider has. I mean, we're all service providers. So I guess it's just like shopping around for a lawyer. If you don't like the law firm or the lawyer that you're working with, you're not guaranteed. You don't have to use them again, right? You can go to someone else, and that's the same with tech companies. And the second one is stakeholder buy-in. A lot of these technologies, as people have said, are expensive, but in the long run, they reduce a lot of costs for the business. But from a budgetary perspective, you need the buy-in right at the start, so that allocation of funding is set aside. And the third thing is a champion, champions within the relevant business. So, when you engage as stakeholders right at the start and you're shortlisting those priorities, say to those businesses, who in your team can champion this for us going forward. And the fourth thing is, I know a lot of large companies are now procuring or hiring candidates simply to implement legal tech. So whether it's the implementation process initially, and then it's, creating and improving the system going forward. That's another option. You know, if you're time poor and you don't have the resources, there are you know, you either hire someone that you know, their sole job is to help you do that, or there are consultants that can assist that are, you know, there's some very good ones in the legal space in Australia, for example, which are very well versed across all the technologies that, you know, you can hire for a portion of the integration to assist with that aspect.
Thank you, Emily. I love it. So there were 4 points, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Arjun, I mean, okay, so you're, like I said, 100th unicorn, very, like, you're new at the company as well. You're a new GC. And you know, something I've noticed, I mean, in my limited interactions with the different GCs across the globe, is that I feel like new GCs, the ones who've moved from law firms into an in-house role or a GC role, or even the younger GCs, they tend to be more open and receptive to legal tech, I feel. You know, they're the ones who are saying, okay, let's sign up with a contract management provider. Let's sign up with, you know, an AI tool or something. Is that your experience as well? And what have you, like, what are your learnings in implementing legal tech in your company?
Sure. So Rohan, I was actually the kind of person who was working in-house for a long time. I was working with a bank, then I worked with a law firm, and now I'm in-house again as a GC here. You know? So one takeaway that I have from my experience is the fact that legal teams or the legal headcount is something that does not typically grow proportionately with the rest of the organization. You know, so let's say, for example, it's like you come into an organization as the first legal person, and there might typically be around 50 salespersons, you know, for whom you're matching the demands at that stage. And when the company scales to maybe 500 people, the legal team need not also correspondingly scale up to the corresponding number as well. You know, typically it tends to either, you know, there might be a disproportion in that sense. So while I have always been keeping an eye out for emerging tech, especially legal tech, there are a couple of things that I keep in mind. I mean, typically I try to scope, select, and then implement, you know. So by scoping, what I mean is that I try to identify the, you know, the pain points that we're facing right now. And also trying to scope out, you know, the present workflows. And if you're going ahead with a chief candidate for a particular solution, how that would fit into the workflow as well. You know, number one question could be about how it addresses the pain points, but something that is usually lost in transition is the question as to how well it fits into your workflow. You know, so that's one thing. And another thing that I feel I would keep an eye out for is typically to try before you buy it. You know, so especially a lot is advertised, and there are so many options out there. You know, so it's not just about buying the product, but rather buying into the product, right? You should be convinced about how the product would fit into the company and whether it would bring value to the team as well. And that should be something that's at some level, it should be measurable, you know, quantifiable in that sense as well. You know? So couple of other things, I mean, may not be, you know, directly relating to the principles of scoping, selecting, and then implementing, but I would also try to make sure when I'm trying a legal product, also try to make sure that it is, you know, compliant with data privacy laws, especially when you're trying. How much you expose to that product is also relevant. You know, so most of the you know, documents you're working with is highly confidential in a company as well, right? So try to make sure that we work with dummy documents, or you know, just give it a dry run in the beginning and then figure out along the way. And one thing I've noticed is that you know, the legal tech players that are out there, they are very forthcoming. They are always you know, happy to give you a demo of the product, give you a demo credential as well, so you can really test it out inside out before you actually go ahead and make that mammoth of a purchase as well. You know? So yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Arjun. And I know that you've worked with Anshul and Tushar at MikeLegal, and you know kind of their solution. But maybe if just for all of our benefits, all of our benefit, I don't know. Anshul and Tushar, maybe if you could just show us what MikeLegal is doing. You don't have to show us kind of everything, but maybe just give us a taste of your main tool, please.
Oh, sure, Ron. Sounds good. So just before we take a deeper dive, just want to build some context. So we're a legal tech company that fundamentally assists in-house teams globally conduct contract proofreading and formatting much more efficiently using AI. So to paint a picture for you, let's say if your team is drafting a contract or you receive a third-party contract, before execution, your team might be spending a good amount of time checking are the clause references done correctly? Are there any undefined terms? Any placeholders still remaining? Or many times the numbering goes for a toss in the contract. So that's when we come in, where we created a Microsoft Word plugin. So no setup is needed. In MS Word itself, at a click of a button, our system can actually show you the various errors, inconsistencies. And the best part here is that our system works on any type of contracts or document. There is no standardization needed. And typically, we've been able to save GCs more than $30,000 to $50,000 every year just by building on the efficiencies. So Tushar, over to you. You're on mute.
Yes, let me share my screen. Yes, is my screen visible?
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, so like Anshul was mentioning, since we are a Microsoft Word add-in, so the interesting thing here is that this MikeDoc review gets integrated to Microsoft Word. So we don't have to migrate to a new platform or get used to anything. Just with a single click, whenever we want to proofread or format the contract, we can, see whatever data that is available out there. It is available to us over here. In MikeDoc, we have primarily focused on helping you proofreading way more efficiently, because whatever that you would be looking in the entire agreement, we provide it over here. So be it any instance pertaining to the definitions, like, whatever terms that we have defined, we are able to show it to you so that you can simply go there, check that, okay, these are the terms that I've defined, and you're able to review it way faster. That whatever terms that have been defined are whether properly defined or not. Even in case you have use certain terms which you have not defined but continuously using it in title case, you are able to identify it way easily when you're using the tool. Similarly, we identify other sort of inconsistencies with the definitions where you have defined the term but using it in small case, or if you have defined the same term multiple times. All these kind of inconsistencies, rather than us manually going through the entire document, struggling with the control F, we are able to get it in a second. Even we are able to help you out in ensuring that all the references are in order. Not just we tell you wherever there is any incorrect clause reference, we are able to help you identify the correct reference as well and fix it with a single click. But even in case you have referred to a particular clause which is not present in the agreement, even that is something that we are able to identify. On top of that, we've made it extremely simple for you to verify whatever references that are present in this agreement, so that you don't have to open the split screen in one part of the screen, keep struggling between identifying the next reference to switching between to the referred clause. Here, whenever you want to review a particular clause, you simply have to click on C clause so that you are able to review it. Or if at random you are eyeballing a particular clause and you want to check what a particular clause is all about, like say what clause 12.3 is, rather than scrolling down to the agreement, you can simply search for that particular clause and review it right here. So this is how easy it becomes for us to even check for all the references, which otherwise ends up taking a lot of our time. We similarly are able to help you out with identifying inconsistencies to amounts and numbers, dates, even identifying placeholders so that we're able to complete the document for the execution way faster. Other than this, there are multiple things that we help you out with. One interesting feature that we recently launched in MikeDoc review is to ensure that you're able to save your analysis for the second or the third time when you want to proofread. This ensures that, whenever you're reviewing using MikeDoc Review, you can basically flag certain cards, you can add comments to it, you can even hide certain things which you don't want to keep on seeing it again and again. Even in case you have to leave the entire proofreading process in between, you can bookmark it, wherever you are, and you can basically review it from the place you have bookmarked it. So entire process has been made much simpler for us because we don't have to then spend our time going through the entire document or looking for the inconsistencies. So this is how we have looked at helping you with the proofreading part. We have even helped you in ensuring that you are able to implement your house style efficiently and effectively. So what it does is that it asks you your feedback as to what is your preferred house style. You can have as many house styles as you want. In each house style, you can set in your font preferences, your line spacing, language, page margins preference. Even you get to save your numbering preference. Now, once you have saved all your preferences or the formats in which you want your numberings to be done, on its own, MikeDocu format will tell you that, okay, these are the inconsistencies that you need to look for. So it will take you to that exact place where the things are inconsistent. So like here for heading, our house style is Book Antiqua 10 and underline, whereas this heading is Calibri 11 and it's not underlined. So MikeDocu format is able to take us to that exact place, tell us that, okay, this is the inconsistency. And to fix it, we just have to click on apply, and this will be made consistent to our house style. Similarly, we are even able to help you identify text numbering in case it is present in this agreement. And you can fix it. By fixing, we mean you can simply change this text numbering to auto numbering with a single click. Even if there is any inconsistency pertaining to indentation or inconsistency in the way we have used the numbering, even that is something that we're able to identify and let you fix with a single click. So in short, instead of going through the entire document manually, our tools basically provide you with the data and then let you decide whether you want to make that change or not. So this is how easy it becomes for you to proofread or format your agreements.
And just to add here, where in-house legal teams find value in us is that this is a process we've seen typically, if you're working on any type of contract, needs to be done by the team. So by reducing the time here, in-house legal teams actually get more time to focus on the negotiation strategy rather than such an important but mundane task. So this is where multiple teams have been using our tool to fundamentally get assisted in the entire process of proofreading and formatting. So if there are any questions, perhaps Rohan can, connect us and we can help them with that.
Sure. No, thank you so much, Anshul and Tushar. That was so good. And I remember when I saw your demo for the first time a few months ago, I was blown away. And also I remembered, like, it brought, how you, like, when you're about to go through something, your life flashes before your eyes, or meant to flash before your eyes. My entire legal career flashed before my eyes as to how much time I spent on proofreading, checking clause references and correcting typos. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think a lot of law firm lawyers probably don't like your solution because it reduces the amount of billable hours that they can actually put down in their timesheets. But my question was going to be actually, yeah, I mean, for a law firm, I think it's a no-brainer. What you guys are doing is a no-brainer. But yeah, for an in-house team and, your clients and your discussions that you've had, is this useful for them? And like you said, you're saving about $30,000 to $50,000 a year in costs for a legal team. What is your experience and what are the sort of pain points that you've sort of seen or heard about from GCs and in-house teams?
So that's very interesting one. In fact, some of the biggest clients that we work with are actually in-house legal teams. And the reason behind that is because for an in-house legal team, they don't have the bandwidth of like a law firm in terms of getting 50, 60 lawyers, right? They have a core team and they need to drive more value. The second thing is that a lot of GCs or in-house teams are now getting built so that the company can do these processes internally rather than outsourcing to a law firm. So till the time you have a legal team who is working on contracts, transactions, etc., internally, our tool is very, because at the end of the day, even if you're getting a contract from a law firm or third party, you're drafting it yourself, you can't sign off on an agreement till the time you proofread it or format it. But the challenge is that it's a very mundane process, it's manual but essential. So that's where our legal tech comes in. And coming back from that point that we were discussing earlier, we never say that we automate this because it's impossible, right? We always say we assist you. So, we can bring your time from 3 hours to 30 minutes, but it can never be 3 hours to 0, right? So that's where we feel that in-house legal teams have, a tremendous value here because they have small teams, but again, working on many transactions. So this tool can save them a lot of time here and focus more on strategy, negotiation, closure of the contract.
Awesome. No, thank you so much. So everyone, I know we have about maybe 10, 15 minutes left in the session officially, but we can always, go a bit longer if there's lots of questions. But does anyone else have any thoughts? So, Pranav, I'm looking at you. You're at Freshworks, which is another unicorn. Do you have any thoughts on LegalTech or what your experience has been so far in your organizations? So Pranav, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the demo, very well made. I remember Tushar reaching out to me. I think, yes, it's been a couple of months, and I said, we have a very standard format that we don't really like to change. So maybe for me at this stage in the company, it won't work because we've standardized it all. But if it was like a year or two before, I would have loved it. And that's true for all the three sides: customer side, partner side, and the vendor side. We have standardized. Maybe it works really well on the versions that the partners, vendors, or customers send to us, but we now have a threshold of what we will accept even for redlining. Otherwise, we'll say take it or leave it. But to the point wherein I thought maybe this is very helpful for even the law firms, because they can take a lot more work, not worry about the quality that the junior is really producing or not, because there is a AI, and still bill, like, a law firm can bill more than 24 hours of work in a single day because of the AI itself. And that's a value proposition that the law firms will need to understand to bill more and to earn more money. Otherwise, they just need to be more headcount based. In terms of LegalTech alone, I think this is a great start. But what I really would want in LegalTech in the future to come is handling all my corporate secretarial work, because that's a lot more mundane, a lot more filing work that my company secretary has to do. It's a standard thing. We know what the board resolution will be for this. There's a certain template needs to be signed, but then every stage is manual, even the filing itself. If that is automated, I think we're not looking at lawyers getting out of job, but we are certainly looking company secretaries looking at more quality work than just clerical admin work that they are stuck with for life. That's one. Second, LegalTech, I think I would really love to have is the calculation and submission of stamp duties on the agreements. In India, it's a little too difficult and challenging to calculate. I don't think in-house lawyers know. If you've come from a law firm and you've joined in-house, maybe you know, but in-house wouldn't know, a law firm guy wouldn't know, a clerk in a law firm would know how to calculate it. It is because it requires that kind of specialized and a day-to-day knowing of how to calculate. And it differs from state to state. It differs from agreement to agreement. And I think the third one is the LegalTech that I would really want to see is on corporate governance, because then you have a lot of policies over a period of time. You have a lot of committees that need to be there. Committees need to be reinstated when somebody leaves. They have to be trained. They have to have a paperwork in place for every quarter, especially if you're a public listed company. And that's another mundane task. I think that can also have a tech to it, saying that, okay, this director has completed about 3 years in this committee. Maybe this is the time to change. And given that he's never been part of this committee, so we think you can change him from this committee. So we don't have to apply our own mind, in fact, to understand whether this person has ever been in that committee or not. The tech really tells us, okay, he can be reappointed or not, whether the policy allows for it. There will be some manual work to make it work, but I think for 10, 15, 20 years, we'll sorted. So that's my 3 future areas of LegalTech that I would really want. The kind of LegalTech that's available in the world for now, it's very basic. One of the companies is called Athenian. It's a Canadian-based company which provides secretarial support, but it doesn't really help for India or Asian entities as much. And I don't even know how successful they are in the US as well. So, but that's it.
Right. Thanks so much, Pranav. And that was a very nice list of 3 points as well. So Tushar and Anshul, if you're listening, your next product, you can address all three. And I'll obviously, you could give me credit and Pranav credit. So maybe
I'll hold the idea. I'll hold some IP, some royalties should come to me.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, no problem. Wendy, I guess Pranav sort of brought up a good point, and maybe that's a good way we can kind of close out the session. Is we've talked about what is kind of legal tech, what you're seeing, what the problems and the watch outs are, and sort of implementation. But what do you see as the next stage? Like, as a sole GC, I'm sure it's pretty tough to, as you said, look at all these contracts. And you were saying, I wish you had a tool to get rid of all the contracts. It's called a lighter and maybe a fireplace, just throw them in there. But what do you see as the next trend or the next stage of legal tech? If I ask you to speculate.
I'm really interested in the AI aspect of it. There's a really good product out there that you can feed it all of your variables for contract negotiation and say, so a limited liability has to be this much. And so with all your variables, it will then do your first review and come up against that list of your what your issues are. I used to be in the construction industry, and one thing that I would really have liked is to be able to feed my contract through such a tool. I think the product I was looking at did it, and it gives you like a pie chart or some kind of graphical interface that I can show the business. Right. Well, it's got a bad limited liability. You've got liquidated damages. You need a parent company guarantee. It's going to be really bloody hard to negotiate this. It's a $30,000 contract. Is it really worth it? And just giving the business more of a commercial outlook on the time it takes to negotiate something. So I think that's kind of the area that legal tech would really benefit in-house lawyers. I also had a bit of experience with litigation, and some of the document management tools like Nuix and those kinds of products where you feed in 1 million documents or 100,000 documents for a claim, and it then databases it all. It helps you with all of your document review, and it allocates and it creates, as Everchron is a chronology bit of software as well. Automatically creates a chronology for you, maps different emails and things like that. And that can just, in the litigation process, that can save hours upon hours of work when you're looking at a huge project and a big claim. I know Rob was talking about sitting around a boardroom table. One of my first roles was as a litigation paralegal, and it was, manually paginating folders after folders for a big bit of litigation. So it's those kinds of things that I think that the legal tech will move into, and it's really that time-saving element that it'll be, but it'll also be that clever, that smart AI element that will grow.
Awesome, thank you. Anthony, I know you're on the call. You're, you run Rainmaker Online Training Solutions. I understand that you also have some experience with legal tech.
Yeah, thanks, Rohan. Actually, I just wanted to share more of my experience. I've had the opportunity to work in-house with a bank, run a law firm, and also be part of the founding team at a legal process outsourcing company. And one of the things that, if we had a solution like this in our time when we started Pangea 3, the LPO in 2006, I think it would have really, really made our lives a lot easier. I find that, especially in LPOs where you have large volumes of probably mostly standardized contracts, this kind of a solution would have been absolute gold for us back in the day. I still feel that for organizations that are supporting multinational clients across the globe, this is great. In my experience at a law firm, though, I felt that in some aspects of what a law firm does, the work tends to get very transactional, very specific to a transaction. So not much scope. But then, of course, now I think times have changed. A lot of the law firms too are doing fairly. There's a team that does the cookie cutter kind of stuff as well. But I would have thought this is just perfect for large banking organizations like ICICI, where I work. This would have been great. And for LPOs, this is a solution that's magic. That's gold. Yeah, I just wanted to share that 2 cents with this group.
Thanks so much, Anthony. Yeah, Pranav, sorry, you've raised your hand.
Yeah, I just realized we use a legal tech called Term Scout. Termscout.com is one of the websites wherein we benchmark our contract with our competitors' contract to understand how good or bad we are in terms of what we are offering versus what our competitors are offering in terms of liabilities and other. It does a benchmark, it gives you a score, and then it gives you a certification. Then you can use that certification to put it online saying we are 4.3 on 5, so which really means anything above than 4 is customer oriented. It's not company oriented. Means the terms are both ways, not just one sided. And it's quite good. You can then use the tech to understand what are the pain points that the customer could be having, and then it reduces the kind of friction. We've seen a tremendous amount of redlining going away ever since we've used that to fix our agreements. And that has reduced the work for the legal team, because we would then again jump on arguing and defending the same things. We said, okay, if this is what we've agreed, let it be in the contract, because our competitors are offering and we are no less.
Sure. Thanks, Pranav. So again, Wendy, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on, I guess, what the next stage is. Maybe Arjun, if I can ask you the same question, like you've obviously implemented some legal tech, but what do you see as the next step? Or do you have any advice perhaps for a GC or a lawyer who's thinking about legal tech, but doesn't know whether to sort of take that plunge? Any sort of words of wisdom?
Yeah. So about legal tech replacing lawyers, I really doubt it. I mean, like Rob was pointing out, I mean, the further up you are in the value chain, the less likely it is that legal tech might eat up your job or your function. So inevitably there might be a lot of requirements for lawyers going forward as well. But I'm kind of keen to see how trends like, or rather emerging technologies like smart contracts, blockchain, and how DAOs, like decentralized autonomous organizations, will play out. Because I mean, with smart contracts, I mean, the element of enforceability is immediate, right? I mean, if it really works out, it is a situation where you don't really need a lawyer to go to court and get you to enforce something, right? With a smart contract, that's one thing. And with a DAO, it is a similar situation where a corporate structure is essentially on a blockchain, and roles, functions, obligations, all can be, can kind of trickle down from what is set down on the blockchain. So some things we might see as challenges going forward. Some things we might embrace and make our lives easier as well. Some things we might actually need to, examine and probably the rule of law, how it would play out with the rule of law is also kind of interesting as well. So yeah, I mean, these might not be really core legal technologies, but somewhere there might be a convergence as well, between these technologies and what we are doing presently. And with respect to some advice for GCs as well, I think I would again say that legal tech, I mean, especially lean teams, that if you're working with a very lean team, this can really help you out. I mean, as much as possible, try to modularize. If you've set out your scope already, try to modularize and see whether the solution that you want can be taken in modules rather than the entire package. You don't really need. I mean, generally, sometimes legal tech might be expensive, so you don't need the entire package. You could always speak to the counterparty and figure a way forward. Implementation, keep an eye out. Find your, as Wendy was pointing out, I mean, you need to find the champion in your team to implement as well. You could be that champion, or you need to find that person as well. And ensuring that it's implemented properly is key. Otherwise, what you announced as with a big bang to all stakeholders internally as a key change in the legal processes might be a big disappointment as well. Yeah. So you should make sure that your processes are mature enough to handle such changes, and keep taking stock of how the new legal tech process is working out in your organization, before going all gung-ho with it as well. So, yeah.
Thanks so much, Arjun. And yeah, I mean, you mentioned blockchain and all these things that I think we hadn't really talked about. So I think, yeah, that it probably is a very interesting sort of phase that legal tech and tech generally will go into. Emilie, do you have any sort of maybe words of guidance or any sort of thoughts on what the future holds in this space?
From a tech perspective, I think from a future and tech perspective, the best place or where I think it is going is the inefficiencies of where many of our roles sit at present. As a GC like Wendy, I'm a one-man show. I find that a lot of the work that I do is high volume but low risk, repetitive, corporate secretary, reporting, internal approval process type of work. So I think in the long term, it would be great to see a lot of tech in that space to help minimize that efficiency in any way possible. So hopefully that's where tech is going from that perspective, but also, as everyone else has indicated, particularly Wendy, it will become more sophisticated so that it will enable us to do our jobs more efficiently. So potentially you may not need 10 lawyers on a large litigation. You may only need 5 as the technology develops, or maybe even 2. Just a partner in charge, or your barrister, for example, and someone that's assisting him with reviewing all the comparisons and the analytics from the technology. So, look, I think it's a really exciting time, and I think, there's lots of potential and opportunity in this space going forward.
Thanks so much, Emilie. So Rob, I'll come to you, and then Anshul, maybe you can close us out. So Rob, again, you were obviously an early adopter of tech with the iPad, but any sort of things that you think somebody should know, like a GC should know about legal tech, or any guidance on what the future holds?
Yeah, it occurs to me, and this, I mean, people have said the types of technology which we are probably going to be adopting in the future. You're talking about blockchain, you're talking about AI, etc. But I think more now than ever before, there's going to be differentiation with the level of tech at the different companies and the different GC teams. I mean, as Emilie was explaining earlier, she's very proactive, running audits, putting out draft pieces of software, and actually testing things with the teams. Wendy, it sounds like you are looking to improve processes a bit more, but it's difficult to kind of justify all of that. When you come into a new role, how do you roll out the tech, and how do you stay on top of what's out there? When the vendors all reach out to you and you don't quite understand how they apply to you, if they apply to you or not. If you have a problem to solve, maybe it's difficult to find. So what I would say is, I think we should all expect that there's going to be greater and greater differentiation. And the key is going to be, trying to understand what's out there. And Rohan, you're doing a wonderful thing here, by the way, by bringing us together, because already I've heard of a number of different pieces of software that I've jotted down that I'm going to be looking into, because, I wasn't even aware in some respects, as much as I was an early adopter, you sort of get into your pigeonhole and you kind of see the issues that you're dealing with, but you don't see the other stuff. And without sharing, especially because, I'm like the other, like Wendy and Emilie, I'm not necessarily a one-man show. I've got one other person to help me, but we're not a very big team here. And we're pretty much focused on our day job, which does not involve going out there and trying to sit at conferences and learn what the technologies are. So really sharing and understanding and trying to stay on top of it is key in these sessions. Rohan, thank you again for organizing.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, Anshul, take us home. Tell us, is there anything, maybe advice, given that you're from the legal tech side, any advice you would give to a GC about legal tech? And also, before I forget, for anyone who's either here or listening to this recording, there obviously is a Ninja discount with MikeLegal. So if you're keen to see a demo or speak to their team, just reach out to me or reach out to Anshul or Tushar. But Anshul, yes, any thoughts?
Sure. So I think, all the speakers have really summed up all the points, but two things that we see a lot, kind of making the legal tech adoption a success or a failure. One is expectation setting, right? So we have seen many times that the GCs onboard a tool expecting something, but actually the tool does something else entirely, right? And the surprising thing is that this has happened even after multiple demos at times, right? So I think what is very important for the legal team or the GC is to really understand what exactly are they looking for, right? Because problem awareness, in my opinion, is very, very important, because without that, even if there are 10 solutions out there, you won't go looking out for them. So I think the first and foremost thing is to be aware of what problem is really stopping you from, scaling the processes much faster, making them more efficient. And second, obviously, is to be very data oriented, right? So while you onboard legal tech, can you quantify the ROI you're getting, right? So are you able to perhaps close contracts X% faster? Has the team become X% more efficient? And it can be different for various legal techs. So like Pranav was mentioning, the amount of redlining drastically reduced. The negotiation process was way more streamlined. So I think that is very, very essential, because at the end of the day, when you're talking to various leaders in the organization, it's a game of ROI, right? So even as a legal tech vendor, our focus is to justify the ROI to the GC. That's from my two sides that a GC should look at when looking at legal tech.
Thanks so much. So I just want to say a huge thank you to our speakers, Anshul, Tushar, Arjun, Emilie, Rob, Wendy, as well as everybody who's spoke up or asked questions or contributed. But thank you so much. I hope you found this session interesting. If you're watching this recording and you found it interesting, do let us know. And we'd love to host MikeLegal again, as well as these speakers again. I think you all shared some really valuable insights. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you, everyone.
So much.
Take care. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.